A crucial job lands on his lap: eliminate the mafia's high-ranking bosses. With his custom-built sniper in hand, Lug takes his position and begins eliminating the targets one after another. Each bullet lands with brutal precision, causing absolute chaos among the remaining mafia members. They scramble behind vehicles for cover, but that offers little protection. Helping him is a new assistant, a sharp young girl serving as his spotter. She calls out positions with clarity, guiding his aim. Even as enemies dive behind cars, Lug's shots penetrate steel and bone alike. As the final marked target falls, Lug casually tells her the mission is complete. Confused, the girl questions why they're leaving when some mafia members are still alive. Lug explains with calm detachment, they only eliminate those they've been ordered to. They aren't saviors or vigilantes, just tools for precise destruction. He hints at something deeper, that their secretive organization may not be cleaning up crime, but rearranging it. By eliminating leadership, the group might be working to place the mafia under its own control. His assistant is stunned, realizing the world-changing mission she imagined is far darker than expected. Before they can leave, Lug spots a surveillance drone tracking them. Instantly alert, he orders her into the car. Realizing the drone was sent for them, Lug switches gears into escape mode. As they speed away, he understands the vehicle is being hunted and they're the prey. He instructs the girl to set up a gun with a wire trigger and rig the car. They leap out while the car keeps going. The rigged weapon opens fire, forcing the pursuing forces to retaliate. Believing they've neutralized their targets, the pursuers destroy the car in a blaze, unaware that Lug and his spotter escaped the trap moments before. While hiding behind a nearby rock, the two wait patiently. When the area seems clear, the girl suggests heading back to their base. Lug, however, advises against it, explaining that a surveillance drone is still hovering nearby. He mentions that the drone's heat-detecting technology is highly effective during the night, so they'll need to stay hidden until daylight when the sun's warmth will help mask their body heat from infrared detection. As they wait, Lug notices that the girl is injured and assists her by treating the wound. Afterward, they both agree to rest since they'll need to move out early the next morning. As they lie down, the girl begins asking a barrage of questions, resembling an overly curious reporter. To silence her inquisitiveness, Lug opens up, revealing that this assignment will be his final one. He plans to leave the assassination business behind and start a new chapter as a trainer for rookies like her. She immediately objects, claiming she's no amateur and boasts about being the best in her class. Lug retorts that if she was truly the best, then the rest of her classmates must have been hopeless. He goes as far as saying he was already more skilled than her even before losing his virginity. With a quick move, he seizes her firearm and points it at her, mocking her for being so careless. He scolds her for trusting him so easily, pointing out that in the assassin world, such trust could mean death. She freezes, completely unsure of how to respond or act. Recognizing her inexperience, Lug lowers the weapon and hands it back, choosing instead to go to sleep. In a sudden attempt to prove herself, the girl points the same weapon at him. Lug remains calm, clearly unbothered. She struggles to understand his confidence until he reveals that the gun she now holds is empty. He had returned it to her without any bullets. As proof, he pulls the bullets from his pocket and drops them on the ground with a smirk, comparing them to her intelligence. She's left stunned and disappointed in herself. The next morning, they finally return to their hideout and make contact with their organization. They're praised for completing the mission and asked whether Lug's partner is still alive. When he confirms she is, they inform him to check a compartment beneath for items prepared for their exit. Inside, Lug finds 2 fake IDs and plane tickets for a flight back to Japan. Later, the pair arrives at the airport and boards the aircraft. For a moment, Lug feels at ease, thinking about his peaceful future as a mentor and leaving his past behind. But just as he begins to relax, the plane is hit by severe turbulence. Panic spreads among the passengers. One of them checks their phone and announces a terrifying update: the plane has been hijacked. Shocked, the girl turns to Lug, asking what's going on, especially since no hijackers are visible anywhere. Realizing the true situation unfolding mid-air, he informs her that this isn't a hijacking, it's a carefully orchestrated elimination by his own organization. They aim to dispose of him because that's the only way to initiate his so-called retirement clause. Hearing this, the girl is struck with dread and silently prepares for the end. Meanwhile, Lug makes a direct move toward the cockpit. An air hostess, clueless about what's happening, tries to block his path. Without hesitation, he pushes her aside with force. Once inside the cockpit, he he discovers that the pilots have already been killed. Without wasting a second, Lug takes control of the aircraft, attempting to rescue what's left of the dire situation. Just then, a fighter jet appears outside, seemingly ready to destroy the plane. As he prepares to respond, Lug realizes there's no way out. His mission, his career, all of it has come to a crashing halt. Bitter and betrayed, he's overwhelmed by frustration and anger. Then, without warning, he finds himself standing in a surreal realm, a spiritual dimension where a radiant, otherworldly goddess appears before him. She playfully mocks his situation, noting the irony of the world's greatest assassin being cast aside by the very people he served. Still disoriented, Lug asks where he is and why he's been brought here. The goddess gives him a choice: be reborn back on Earth as an ordinary baby with no past memories, or enter a completely new world of magic, keeping all his memories and abilities, on the condition that he completes a special mission. Suspicious, he asks who the target of this new mission would be. She reveals that it's the hero of this magical world, a chosen one who, although fated to defeat the Demon King, will later let the power corrupt him and plunge the world into chaos. As Lug processes this, she calmly offers him tea like it's all part of a casual chat. Despite the strange atmosphere, he begins to accept the reality of reincarnation. She explains that it's more common than people think, but most souls don't retain memories of their past lives. He, however, will be the exception. Reflecting on his own life, Lug realizes he never truly lived. He had always been a weapon, devoid of emotion or purpose beyond his missions. But facing death opened his eyes. He had regrets, unfulfilled dreams, and no identity of his own. Given the chance, he chooses to start over in this new world, as long as he keeps his memories and skills. The goddess agrees, only emphasizing one condition: when the time comes, on his 18th birthday, he must assassinate the hero. She then gently places her hand on his head, and in an instant, transfers all the essential knowledge he'll need to navigate the new world, its language, culture, and customs. Once equipped with that knowledge, Lug begins to consider the people of this new world, especially its women, still unsure how to relate to them. He questions the goddess's motives again, trying to understand her reasoning. She explains that once the hero completes his noble task, his personality will shift. The overwhelming power he gains will corrupt him, and he'll eventually try to dominate and destroy the world. After hearing the story, Lug finds the backstory acceptable. He then questions the goddess, asking if he'll be allowed to eliminate the hero at any time he wishes. The goddess denies this request, explaining that the hero is the only one capable of defeating the Demon Lord. She instructs Lug not to kill the hero until the Demon Lord is taken care of. Realizing the importance of the mission, Lug accepts the terms without hesitation. The goddess then presents him with a series of cards, each containing unique powers and abilities. After analyzing the options, Lug chooses a diverse mix across various skill sets. As a result, he is granted a unique advantage: the power to freely use all four elemental magics. Once his choices are finalized, the goddess sends him off with a blessing into his new life. Lug is reborn into a noble household, known publicly as a distinguished family of royal physicians. However, beneath that image, they are an elite clan of assassins trained in the shadows. This arrangement is perfect for Lug, as it allows him to grow into an assassin without the need for secrecy. Pleased with his circumstances, Lug dedicates himself to intense training from the moment he can walk. Years go by, and as a young boy, he ventures into the forest alone to test his abilities by hunting a rabbit. Tracking its trail, he sprints through the woods, leaps into a tree, and takes down the rabbit with a clean shot through its eye. Returning home with his catch, he is greeted warmly by his mother, who offers to cook it for him. Remembering her questionable cooking history, Lug politely declines and opts to prepare the meal himself. With no modern supplements available, he focuses on maintaining peak physical condition through a well-balanced diet. Using a mix of herbs and spices, he cooks the rabbit to perfection and enjoys the meal with his family. After dinner, his stoic father stands and instructs him to head down to the basement, their usual training area. Lug follows without delay. Once there, his father tells him to strip, a necessary step in assessing his physical development. Lug complies, and his father thoroughly checks his body to evaluate muscle growth, overall health, and compare it with others his age. After the inspection, his father determines that Lug is finally ready to undergo a special procedure. This family secret eye surgery enhances vision and capabilities and is exclusively passed from father to son. Typically performed at an older age, his father believes Lug's rapid progress makes him suitable for the operation now. The following day, Lug undergoes the surgery. With his eyes bandaged, he's temporarily blinded, and his mother lovingly tends to him during his recovery, treating him with a mix of care and concern that shows her deep affection. She gives him food, but as things begin to spiral a little, he runs to his father. At that moment, his father removes his blindfold, revealing the breathtaking view of the vast estate they own. As Lug opens his eyes and tries to adjust, he realizes he can now see distant objects with incredible clarity. In addition to this, he discovers that he can see in complete darkness, a skill that will prove essential for his future role as an assassin. When he turns back to express his gratitude, he suddenly notices he can also perceive the amount of mana flowing through his father. Right then, his father informs him that he has arranged for a personal instructor to teach him magic starting the next day. Lug is thrilled by this news, as he's eager to learn all he can about magic in this new world. The following morning, his mother has some fun dressing him up in a princess outfit before they welcome the new tutor. Eventually, the tutor arrives in a carriage. A silver-haired young girl who introduces herself as Dea. Upon meeting Lug, who now looks quite silly in his attire, she questions whether he's too young to begin magical training. Lug snaps back, pointing out that she doesn't seem much older than him, which clearly annoys her. To prove her strength, she unleashes a powerful explosion spell right in front of him, leaving Lug both shocked and impressed. Dea then explains that despite her youthful appearance, she is ranked among the top 4 mags in the kingdom. Her goal is to train Lug hard enough to make him at least the 5th strongest. Their training begins the very next day in the garden, where they formally introduce themselves. Dea tells Lug not to be overly polite since they're close in age, but Lug insists on treating her with respect as his teacher. In response, she hands him a crystal orb called a Firestone, a magical tool used to measure how much natural mana a person holds. She explains that the greater your mana reserve, the more advanced and destructive magic you can perform. She instructs Lug to channel all his mana into the stone. To her amazement, he keeps transferring more and more mana, far beyond what she expected, leaving her completely stunned and even pleading for him to stop. As the Firestone becomes unstable from the overwhelming energy, Dea panics and tells Lug to hurl it away before it bursts. Lug promptly boosts his strength and throws the orb into the air, where it detonates with a thunderous explosion. The sound draws his parents outside in alarm. Dea quickly takes responsibility, assuming they'll be upset. But instead, they're thrilled. They express their joy over discovering their son's immense potential and thank Dea for her role in it before leaving them to continue training. Meanwhile, Lug finds himself completely fascinated with the Firestones and their potential. He considers that these special stones could be a powerful asset against the hero, especially due to their volatile nature. This leads him to question Dea about them and how he might get his hands on some. Dea, however, explains that such stones aren't something easily found in shops. They're actually sacred treasures of her homeland, with their distribution being tightly restricted. That evening, Dea unexpectedly slips into Lug's room and lies down beside him, telling him she now sees him as her younger brother. She jokingly hopes she doesn't end up stuck beneath the bed. The next morning, they walk to a quiet riverbank where she gives him another Firestone. She instructs him to infuse only a small amount of mana into it, saying she wants to assess his elemental affinity. She checks for fire first and is pleased to discover he has it. Just to double check, she tests for water as well, mentioning how rare it is for anyone to possess both elements. She herself being among the very few who do. To her astonishment, Lug has both. This excites her, as it means she can now pass on everything she knows. Out of pure curiosity, Lug wonders if he might have more, and asks her to test further. She smiles, saying 3 attributes are unheard of and no one in history has ever had more than 2. However, her amusement turns into shock when she detects a 3rd element, wind. She checks again, unable to believe it. What she finds next completely stuns her. He actually has all 4 primary elements, something thought impossible. Regaining her composure, she realizes Lug is not someone to underestimate. Sitting next to him, she attempts to help him awaken his latent magical power. Suddenly, Lug becomes capable of performing magic, able to do a variety of things. Dea tells him that with practice, he'll unlock even more spells. Lug, still adjusting, has trouble conceptualizing the spells, so Dea demonstrates a basic earth spell, creating copper. She performs it effortlessly, and Lug tries to mimic her. But due to being new to this world, his pronunciation is off, and he ends up generating a faulty piece of copper. That night, he documents everything he's learned. Dea once again enters his room and sleeps beside him, as if it's routine now. The next day, after many attempts, he finally produces a properly formed copper block. Dea is thrilled by his rapid improvement. Lug then asks her to write down some of the spells she's learned so he can try them. She does, and he recites one. To his surprise, he creates a chunk of iron instantly. It dawns on him that the structure of spells is mostly similar. The only difference between the copper and iron spell was a slight variation in the wording. Realizing the opportunity, he eagerly asks Diet to jot down all the spells she knows on paper. Though hesitant at first due to the time it would take, she eventually agrees and begins writing. After going through her notes, he comes to the conclusion that the only variation between the metals lies in their atomic weight. He attempts to explain this concept to Diet, but her limited grasp on such matters makes it hard for her to follow. So, he shifts gears and asks her to craft a spell for him. She writes out one intended for iron, but instead of using iron, he tweaks the atomic weight in the spell to that of gold. Then he instructs Diet to chant it. As she tries, she suddenly collapses with a sharp headache. Realizing the spell may be too advanced for everyone, he takes over, rewrites the incantation himself, and chants it aloud. To Diet's shock, a gleaming bar of gold materializes. Using one of his unique abilities, he modifies the spell further, and miraculously, Diet is now able to perform it too. The two, now feeling like amateur inventors with a treasure chest of possibilities, celebrate their success. In the days that follow, Lug masters the art of producing more complex materials from these metals. They head down to a riverbank where he uses his magic to create a rifle, and fires enchanted bullets from it. Diet is able to copy this as well, which pleases him, since it means they have a potential weapon to use against the hero. But the rifle isn't strong enough for a truly formidable enemy. So he goes big, literally, by creating a massive cannon. Not just a large weapon, but a colossal magic-powered cannon. Before firing, he tells Diet to cover her ears. When he lets it loose, the blast obliterates the island across the water. Impressed by the force of the cannon, Lug turns to inspect it, only to find its shaft has been destroyed from the force. He figures a more durable metal is needed. When he offers Diet a chance to try it, she politely declines, saying she's content with her rifle for now. Later that night, lying side by side, Diet becomes emotional. It's her final evening serving as his magic mentor. She must return to her homeland the next day. Lug, choosing not to express his feelings outright, uses his abilities to forge a dagger from a rare and immensely strong metal, possibly akin to a legendary one never before seen in their world. He demonstrates its sharpness and presents it to Diet as a farewell gift. Touched, she removes her pendant containing a radiant gem and hands it to Lug, asking him to come see her if she ever truly wishes to meet him again. The following morning, she departs in her carriage, expressing gratitude for the hospitality and assuring them she'll return someday. At that moment, Lug's father glanced over at him with a serious expression, sensing an overwhelming surge of mana flowing from within his son. He understood right away. Lug was finally prepared to take the first steps toward becoming a true assassin. That night, he brought Lug to a secluded facility, a grim prison that housed numerous death row convicts. These criminals were often used for experimental drug testing and training purposes. During their walk, Lug turned to his father with a question that had been on his mind. He asked why he had been raised to understand human emotions, suggesting it would only interfere with his capacity to kill efficiently. His father responded calmly, explaining that he never intended for Lug to become a mere killing instrument. Instead, he wanted his son to be capable of living a normal life outside the shadows, to remain human at heart. Soon, they reached a specific cell. Inside, restrained and gagged, sat a 19-year-old girl. His father removed her gag, prompting her to immediately plead for mercy. Tearfully, she begged for her life, insisting she never meant any harm. She was accused of sneaking into an old couple's home. When they unexpectedly returned, she panicked, killed them, and set their house on fire. Through sobs, she claimed hunger had driven her to break in and the killings were a mistake, the fire an act of fear. Despite her pleas, Lug calmly stepped forward and without hesitation severed one of her hands. The girl screamed in agony, hurling curses at both father and son, especially the elder, for making her believe Lug might show mercy. Lug had heard enough. Knowing her type all too well, he hurled his dagger straight into her neck, silencing her instantly. Years slipped by, and now Lug had turned 10. On a quiet day, his family took a stroll through the marketplace, where villagers were eagerly preparing for the approaching winter. As the men engaged in conversation, his mother mingled warmly with local female vendors. Meanwhile, Lug scanned the area, trying to sense anyone with traces of mana. He realized quickly that finding someone with even a flicker of magical potential among the common folk was no easy task, like trying to find a single spark in a sea of darkness. With just 8 years left before his mission to eliminate the hero, Lug felt it was time to find someone who could support him, a capable assistant. He sought someone ordinary, yet possessing mana he could nurture and use as a useful tool. The following day, he ventured into the woods for one of his regular hunts. While moving silently through the trees, he picked up the faint sound of howling. Pressing his ear to the earth, he recognized it for wolf pack chasing down prey. Intrigued, he followed the sounds, hoping to intercept and claim the prize for himself. As he arrived, he spotted the wolves circling a small, filthy girl who looked to be in terrible condition. One of the wolves lunged at her, but Lug reacted instantly, firing an arrow that pierced its skull. Then, without hesitation, he stepped between the remaining wolves and the trembling girl. Assessing the situation, he countered the attackers. Before acting, he hands his gear to the girl and draws his blade. One of the wolves lunges at him, but he quickly thrusts the knife into its throat. Another wolf targets the girl, but he intercepts it with a solid kick. 2 more leap at him, biting onto his arms, but his metal arm guards protect him. He forcefully twists, slamming the wolves down, and delivers a final punch to the remaining one's head, fending them all off. Once the danger is handled, he walks back to the girl and questions her presence in the woods. Nervously, she explains that she got lost and means no trouble. She adds that her family was struggling financially and had too many mouths to feed, so they cast her out to survive on her own. She mentions meeting a traveler who told her about the Tuatha region, a prosperous land, and she journeyed through the forest, hoping to find it. Moved by her story, Lug offers her his jacket to warm up and begins preparing some porridge. Once it's ready, he hands her a bowl and advises her to eat slowly or risk getting sick. She introduces herself as Tart and gratefully accepts the hot food. Lug then discloses his identity, the son of the lord who rules over the Tuatha region. Tart is taken aback and brightens upon hearing this, explaining that a deity once told her she would encounter someone fated to change her life. Lug suspects this is the goddess subtly supporting his cause. From the start, he had noticed that Tart fit the ideal qualities for someone who could serve under him. He invites her to stay with him. Not out of selfishness, but so she wouldn't have to starve or wander anymore. However, he makes it clear that she must follow all of his commands, including potential tasks that involve taking lives. He gives her full freedom to decide her future. Grateful for the opportunity, she accepts his offer without hesitation. She admits she had never been wanted before, and he is the first to express that she has value. 2 years go by, and Lug is now awakened by Tart, who has matured into a graceful young woman. Her dedication and effort have earned his parents' approval. Still, on the night she was first brought in, Lug's father gave him 2 strict conditions: he must personally train her, and if she ever turned against them, he would be responsible for stopping her permanently. Recalling that moment, Lug instructs Tart to meet him in the training room for an evaluation, the same kind he went through in his own training days. He has her run through various physical checks to measure her development. Afterward, he nods in satisfaction and turns to leave. Suddenly, Tart tries to surprise him with a training knife, but he reacts quickly and restrains her. It's clear she's skilled with blades and shows great potential. Though she's talented with knives, he realizes that a spear suits her combat style better. However, conventional spears are too large and impractical for their missions. To solve this, Lug presents her with a custom-made, collapsible spear that can be hidden easily. Excited, Tart tests the new weapon on a practice dummy and impressively hits her target with every strike, eventually reducing the dummy to splinters. She beams with appreciation for the gift. With training complete for the day, the two retreat for the night. The next morning, Lug heads into town where he's warmly welcomed by the locals. Everyone offers him gifts, and by the time he's ready to return home, his entire carriage is overflowing with produce and farm goods from the villagers. Once back, Lug checks his collection of far stones and, through his own experimentation, manages to figure out how to create them himself, despite Dyer withholding the method. He infuses them with mana, preparing to eventually use them as makeshift grenades in combat against the hero. Not long after, Tart shows up to inform him that his father has summoned him to the training area. When Lug arrives, his father questions him about Tart's capabilities. Lug explains that he's trained her to be on par with members of the extended Tuatha family. Still, his father expresses concern that Tart could be an undercover agent sent by a rival faction to uncover family secrets. Lug reassures him that he has been observing her closely for years, studying her behavior and movement patterns. He is convinced she poses no threat, and insists that if she had been a spy, he would have eliminated her. His father agrees, admitting he also believes she's genuine and that perhaps fate or divine intervention brought her to them. Then comes a revelation: Lug is finally strong and mature enough to take the final test required to become a true assassin. His father asks whether he's prepared, and Lug confidently accepts the challenge. The first trial? A duel against his own father. Donning his combat gear, Lug follows his father into the forest. Lug is confident that his experience in both his current and past lives will give him an advantage in battle. He climbs a tree for a better vantage point, but just then, his father fires arrows in his direction. Lug narrowly escapes, leaping down and trying to locate his opponent. His father then fires a bolt from a crossbow, which Lug again dodges before retaliating by throwing a knife, only to see it deflected. His father counters by slashing at Lug with a blade. Lug dodges and tries to land a kick, but his father reacts quickly, catching his leg and fracturing a bone. Lug manages to knock him back and leaps into nearby bushes. There, he quickly uses his potent healing magic to repair the injury. He continues downhill, where a trap laid by his father nearly catches him, but Lug avoids it and is immediately forced into another close-range clash. While parrying the incoming attacks, Lug grabs his father's arm and delivers a powerful kick to his ribs, forcing him to retreat momentarily. Seconds later, his father charges again, but Lug, having predicted his next move, is ready. He avoids the assault but still ends up wounded, taking a stab to the shoulder. Though the clash was fierce, Lug manages to turn the tide, holding his blade to his father's neck and proving himself victorious. After their intense bout, the two return from the forest to find Tart waiting with freshly prepared tea. That evening, his father carefully treats Lug's injuries, explaining that he's taught him all he could and now it's time for Lug to gain real-world experience in the art of assassination. Their next mission takes them to eliminate a corrupt official from Isekai, someone who abuses his authority to exploit girls. After successfully completing the task, the duo escape through a window. That night, they continue their work, discreetly distributing lethal poisons disguised as medicine to other despicable elites. They ensure the deaths appear accidental, burning one, staging others carefully, so none of the incidents can be linked back to the Tuatha family. The following day, Lug and his father visit a sick noble, whom they help treat. On the way back, Lug learns that he will soon be sent to another city, living under a false identity as the illegitimate child of a prominent merchant. The plan is for him to remain there for 2 years, establishing a reputation as a skilled trader. This will give them strategic leverage, as nobles often invite trusted merchants into their homes, sometimes bypassing strict security checks. Lug agrees to the mission, understanding its importance. To honor his son's achievement, Lug's father hosts a grand banquet with the entire extended family present. During the celebration, he proudly announces Lug is the youngest in the family's history to pass the final trial. He also reveals Lug is set to inherit leadership of the clan upon his passing, a declaration that clearly ruffles a few feathers among the guests. One disgruntled relative hurls a wine glass at Lug, but Lug catches it effortlessly. The jealous man refuses to accept someone younger leading the family and demands a duel. Confident in his son's ability, Lug's father allows it. But before the man can react, Lug instantly appears behind him, blade at his throat, bringing the duel to a swift and humiliating end. The man is visibly shaken and humiliated. Before his departure, Lug approaches his cousin, acknowledging his strength and offering him a place by his side as a trusted subordinate. Despite initial hesitation, the cousin agrees. As a parting gesture, Lug presents him with a finely crafted titanium sword. The next day, Lug prepares for his journey. Accompanied by Tart, he boards a carriage bound for the city where he'll take on the new identity of Illig, a merchant's son. Upon arrival, he settles into his new home within one of the kingdom's wealthiest trade regions. To blend in, Lug disguises himself by dyeing his silver hair black and wearing glasses, effectively creating a distinct persona. Not long after, he receives information about a local orphanage involved in horrific crimes, selling young girls to wealthy nobles. He also learns about a rare case, a commoner girl among them who can use magic. This leads him to visit a local orphanage. Upon arriving, he comes across a blue-haired girl crying while holding a sickle, clearly moments away from scarring her own face. She believes that by making herself look hideous, she can avoid being sold off and mistreated. Moved by the sight, Lug gently stops her and holds her hand, asking her to reconsider. With calm warmth, he tells her she has a beautiful smile and should show it more often. Soon after, he meets the orphanage overseer, a repulsive, overweight man, who starts showing him around and offering a look at several girls available for sale. Lug quickly notices that the blue-haired girl is the only one who possesses mana. He informs the owner that he wants to buy her. The man tells him her name is Moha and that she's special, demanding 3 times the usual price. But Lug has more than enough resources to pay without hesitation. After handing over the money, the owner explains that Moha will need to be cleaned up and prepared, and instructs Lug to return in 3 days. But that wait is just a cover for the owner's own twisted plans. Moha is visibly fearful but stays silent, knowing that speaking out could endanger her and the other girls. Before Lug departs, he warns the man not to lay a finger on her, declaring that Moha now belongs to his family. Despite the warning, the man intends to exploit her before the handover. That same night, he has her bathed and loaded into a carriage, planning to take her to a noble's estate. As they travel, Moha recalls Lug's kind words and decides she wants to stay pure for him, the only person who's ever shown her kindness. Seizing a moment, she escapes the carriage and flees into the nearby forest. Unfortunately, one of the owner's men, who also has mana, catches up to her and grabs her just as he's about to take things further. Before anything worse can happen, Lug arrives and forcefully slams the man into the ground. The orphanage owner soon follows, stunned to find Lug there early. He protests, saying Lug wasn't supposed to show up until 3 days later and demands to know why he's come ahead of schedule. Lug responds by calling him out as the most disgusting creature to ever walk the land. Enraged, the man orders his guard to attack. The thug charges at Lug, but Lug easily dodges and shatters the attacker's arm. Trying his own luck, the fat man lunges from behind, only for Lug to evade him again and press a blade to his throat. Lug then calmly asks Moha to explain the situation. She reveals that she and the other girls used to live in the slums and were all orphans. To survive, they give city tours to travelers and earn small tips, along with a bit of money from a restaurant that paid them to bring customers in. Even though it didn't earn them much, they lived content and thankful for what they had. But that peace didn't last. One day, the fatty's henchmen suddenly ambushed them. Moha, being the only one who could use mana, tried to stand her ground, but they were overpowered. The group was dragged back to the orphanage and locked away in a room with nothing but some vegetables to survive the week. As time passed and the girls matured, the fatty began selling them off one by one to nobles, who treated them cruelly. This kept happening to most of the girls, and the humiliation pushed one of them to take a sickle to her own face, hoping the disfigurement would spare her from being sold again. In order to trap the corrupt nobles, Tart disguised herself as one of the girls. Just as a noble attempted to act, he was apprehended. Afterward, Lug healed the scarred girl and left the orphanage with Moha, offering her a new beginning. Months passed under Lug's protection, and he thrived as part of his new merchant family. Lord Baylor, Lug's adopted father, shared that he had finalized all the documentation, officially making Moha his legal younger sister. This news pleased Lug, as it allowed them to work closely without raising suspicions. Later, Lord Baylor brought Lug to a private room and presented plans for a storefront located at a prominent crossroads in the city. He explained that he once ran a liquor shop there, but it had failed, leading to its closure. Now, he wanted Lug to take it over, believing that he was the only one who could turn it into a success. Though hesitant, Lug accepted and returned home, where both Tart and Moha had cooked a wonderful meal. During dinner, he shared the news with them. He told them that he had been asked to manage a shop and planned to use it to further his larger mission, assassinating the hero with precision. The first step, he explained, was to make the business profitable so it wouldn't be shut down. The second goal was to sell products that would attract nobles, allowing them to get closer to their targets. The girls asked what products he had in mind, and he revealed his plan to sell sweets and cosmetics, especially aimed at noble women. Moha, however, questioned how they would compete in the already saturated cosmetics market. Lug realized this could be a hurdle but reassured her that he had a strategy and would reveal it soon. The following day, Lug met with Lord Baylor and his wife to share the plan. However, Baylor's wife clearly disliked Lug, thinking he might be an illegitimate child. She kept her face veiled for an unknown reason, something that would soon come to light. At that moment, Lug begins sharing his idea for a new product, not something that would rival existing cosmetics, but rather one that enhances their use. He explains how applying makeup can be a tedious process and how it often leaves skin feeling dry and irritated after removal. His innovation is meant to solve this issue entirely. The item in question is a type of moisturizing cream, a product completely unheard of in this world. To test it, his devious stepmother tries a bit on the back of her hand. She's immediately surprised by how soft and smooth her skin becomes. Intrigued, she removes her facial covering to test it on her face. It's then revealed why she usually hides her features. Her appearance is far from pleasant. However, once she applies the cream, she's delighted by how supple her skin feels. To further demonstrate how effective the product is, Lug encourages her to apply makeup over it. She follows his suggestion and is amazed at how smoothly the makeup goes on. Lug then asks for her opinion, and though she insists she still despises him, she clearly adores the moisturizer. Seeing his wife in high spirits, Lord Baylor becomes interested and asks if she could share it with others. He then inquires about production capacity. Lug responds that, for now, only he can make it and estimates a weekly output of 200 bottles. Lord Baylor pushes for faster production by hiring additional workers. Lug, however, warns that doing so would risk exposing the secret formula to rival companies who might bribe the workers. Understanding the potential threat, Lord Baylor instead asks when full-scale production could begin, and Lug assures him it will be ready by month's end. However, Lug notes that the formula relies on a unique material found only in the 2-Day region. Baylor doesn't object and grants him the freedom to proceed. On the return trip, Lug confides in Tart that he purposely made the rare ingredient essential to the formula. This strategic move ensures Baylor won't abandon him easily and also brings economic benefits to the 2-Day region as its exclusive supplier. As time passes, Lug, using the name Illig Baylor, establishes his cosmetic business, and the moisturizer becomes an overnight sensation. Women flock to the shop daily to buy it, prompting Lug to limit purchases to 2 bottles per person due to the high demand. He places Moha in charge of store operations, and she recruits all her childhood friends from the orphanage to work with her. From a nearby vantage point, Tart and Lug observe how efficiently everything runs. Lug feels reassured by letting Moha assemble her own team. They've known and trusted each other for years. As a bonus, the staff's youthful charm fits perfectly with the beauty-focused theme of the store. As anticipated, rival corporations are scheming to uncover the secret behind the moisturizer formula. Despite their efforts to investigate the workers, none of them realize the key ingredient originates from the secluded 2-Day region. Lug is relieved by this and instructs Tart to strengthen their security. Any leak about the formula could be disastrous. Later that night, while Lug attempts to get some rest, he becomes aware of an intruder sneaking through the ceiling toward his bedroom. Sensing that this person must be a skilled operative due to their expert concealment, he prepares to confront the threat. But before he can act, Tart enters his room and swiftly drives her spear into the ceiling. She calmly assures Lug that there's no cause for concern. She laced the spearhead with a paralyzing neurotoxin. Surprisingly, Moha is also in the ceiling, and she drops down to report that the intruder has been neutralized and restrained. They bring the spy down to the underground chamber. After undressing him, they get a glimpse of his unsettling expression, clearly unhinged. The girls begin to interrogate him, offering a slim chance at survival in return for intel about who sent him, though they never intend to set him free. By morning, Lug prepares to travel to the neighboring kingdom where Dia resides. He had made a promise to visit her once each month. With their mentor away, Tart and Moha decide to treat themselves to a proper meal. Upon arriving, Lug flies directly into Dia's chamber via her window, and she's thrilled to see him. She eagerly presents him with pages of newly developed spells she's created. One particular incantation catches Lug's eye, and he urges her to demonstrate it. To his astonishment, the spell reverses the gravity of any selected object, an effect that leaves him deeply impressed. After chatting for a while, Lug gives her a box of chocolates he crafted himself. Since chocolate doesn't exist in their world yet, Dia is confused and says they look awful. But after he convinces her to take a bite, she immediately falls in love with the flavor. Delighted, she makes Lug promise to bring more next time he visits. With that, the two spend the rest of their time reading, exchanging ideas, and refining magic together. As the sun sets, Lug prepares to head back, and the two exchange heartfelt goodbyes. A few days later, Lug sits peacefully outdoors, sipping tea while admiring the success of his cosmetics empire. At that moment, Tart returns from a mission and is happy to see her master doing well. She presents him with her trophies, buttons from the uniforms of the men she eliminated. Lug praises her impressive battlefield performance and notes she's even earned a nickname for her combat prowess, which she finds a bit embarrassing. He's been sending her on these missions to help sharpen her fighting instincts, while leaving Moha in charge of learning logistics, finance, and intelligence by managing the booming beauty brand, now among the city's finest. Thanks to his growing influence among the noble class, Lug finds himself regularly invited to their gatherings and dinner parties. However, these privileges are about to pause, as his return to his homeland approaches. That night, he has a private meeting with Moha, during which he entrusts her with managing the cosmetics business while he's away. Moha confidently assures him that she'll do an excellent job and even has plans to expand into nearby towns. She presents him with a map showing a location she believes would be perfect for a new shop. As Lug studies the map, he comes to a shocking realization: the place Moha wants to purchase is owned by her father. Her father, once a prominent merchant with a renowned trading business, was betrayed and murdered along with Moha's mother by his trusted second-in-command, who then seized control of the company. With her life at risk, Moha fled and ended up in Miltu. Lug concludes that she intends to reclaim what was stolen from her and take revenge on those responsible. Wanting to support her, Lug tells her she's free to pursue her goals however she sees fit, expressing his full trust in her. Moha is touched by this and promises to put her all into the mission. Just then, Moha's friends enter the room and present Lug with a farewell gift, a rare and high-quality herbal tea. They express their heartfelt gratitude for everything he's done for them, especially helping them escape life on the streets. They bid him goodbye and hope he'll visit again in the future. Lug thanks them warmly and promises that he'll always remember them. The next morning, as Moha helps him get ready for the journey, she discovers his real hair color and finds it quite surprising. Meanwhile, Tart prepares herself to accompany him on the journey back. As the carriage sets off, they are suddenly ambushed by a pack of wolf-like beasts. Lug, having sensed their approach using mana, instructs the coachman to hide while he and Tart step out to confront the danger. Eager to show how much she's improved, Tart takes on the monsters herself and swiftly eliminates them. Lug praises her performance but keeps a more serious thought to himself: if monsters are starting to appear closer to human settlements, the Demon Lord's return may be near. With the threat neutralized, they resume their journey. Eventually, they arrive at the farmland of Lug's territory. The local farmers are thrilled to see him, thankful for his help even during his absence. They present him with a basket filled with fresh vegetables in appreciation, and he accepts their gift gratefully. Upon returning home, Lug is welcomed by his affectionate mother, who embraces him tightly and even sniffs him, which leaves him visibly uncomfortable. Curious about his father's whereabouts, he is directed to meet him in the study. When Lug arrives, he finds his father occupied with some paperwork but still takes a moment to acknowledge Lug's growth into adulthood. He praises his accomplishments, especially creating a brand like Orna with Baylor's help. Inviting Lug to sit, his father shares that Baylor had come to visit recently, trying to persuade him to reconsider Lug's career path, suggesting he switch from being an assassin to pursuing a life as a merchant. Baylor apparently wants Lug to support him in business, and his father adds that whatever Lug decides, he won't stand in his way. After hearing this, Lug responds firmly, saying he never planned to abandon his role as an assassin. He explains that his time spent in Miltu as a merchant was just a way to improve his skills in assassination. Despite this, his father leans toward Baylor's suggestion and advises Lug to consider it seriously, pointing out that Lug has yet to take a life himself. He proposes that if something were to happen to the Tuatha family, it might be safer for Lug to live under a different identity. Still, Lug stands by his decision to remain an assassin. He says it's not just about his duty, he wants to ensure peace in his homeland and protect the people in places like Miltu, where he's made meaningful connections. Deep down, Lug knows that unlike in his previous life, he now has the freedom to decide who deserves to die. He also confesses that he loves Dia and wants to marry her, something that wouldn't be possible if he became a merchant, since she is a noble and he must remain one too. Amused by his reasoning, his father laughs and tells him he should embrace the role of a noble assassin. He then assigns Lug a significant mission to eliminate a corrupt noble who has been trafficking illegal drugs into the kingdom in exchange for military secrets, actions that have been harming the citizens. This individual needs to be dealt with swiftly, and Lug's father gives him full authority to handle it. Lug, determined, promises to execute the mission flawlessly. Later that night, Lug shares the details of their next assignment with Tart. Their target is Count Venka, a corrupt noble involved in the distribution of illegal drugs. Lug prepares coded messages with mission details and ties them to Pigeon's legs, sending them off to Moha so she can gather intelligence on the Count and his household. The following morning, Lug wakes to find his mother in his room. She barges in, curious to see the Magnum juice tart had previously mentioned. Annoyed, Lug manages to get her to leave. After breakfast, she summons him again, this time with a surprise, photos of various beautiful women, insisting it's time he chooses a bride and gives her grandchildren. Lug flatly refuses, prompting her to ask whether Tart would be willing to have his children instead. Tart, flustered, agrees, if that's what Lug wants. Lug brushes the idea aside, clearly uninterested in entertaining any of it. As night falls, Lug and Tart gear up and begin their journey to the city of Pisar, where Count Venka resides. They travel through the night, and by morning, they catch sight of the city. Lug explains that Pisar is the second largest merchant hub after Miltiu. Once inside, they notice a disturbing sight, wounded and crippled soldiers begging in the streets. Lug explains that Venka sold out military intelligence to criminal allies in exchange for drugs, leading to the collapse of local security. While passing through a dim alley, a young girl approaches them offering gooseberry jam. Sensing something suspicious, Lug watches as she gives a jar to Tart for a taste. Playing along, they pose as a couple. Lug samples the jam himself and immediately detects the presence of drugs. He confronts the girl and angrily destroys her basket of jam jars. At that moment, 4 thugs appear. Without hesitation, Lug and Tart take them down swiftly and efficiently. Afterward, they question the girl, who hesitantly agrees to take them to her home. There, she introduces them to her mother, who sits in a corner, consumed by addiction. The woman lunges at her daughter, begging for more of the drug. When the girl admits she has none, the mother shoves her to the ground. Lug intervenes, pinning the woman down and calming her. He then uses his skills to remove her physical dependency on the drug, though he warns Tart that her mental addiction will take longer to overcome. With their job done, the two quietly leave. Back home in Alvin, Lug is greeted once again by his lively mother, who has just received a batch of new cosmetics from Orna, Lug's own company. Among the delivery is a letter from Moha, who has completed her investigation. She confirms that Count Venka is indeed responsible for the drug trade and explains the devastating effects of the substance. However, because Venka is protected by powerful noble connections, bringing him to justice won't be easy. After learning everything, Lug becomes fully committed to making the man behind it all pay with his life. Moha had also explained a way to infiltrate his estate. The following day, Lug and Moha set out together in a carriage headed for Venka's residence. During the ride, Moha expresses how much she missed him, even though he'd only been gone 10 days. She also mentions that the other girls have been trying to get closer to him, but he keeps brushing them off. Lug responds by saying he only sees them as his family, nothing romantic, because his heart belongs solely to Dea. Eventually, they arrive at their destination, Count Venka's estate. Surprisingly, they're greeted at the door by Count Venka's wife, who warmly welcomes them into the home. She leads them inside, where she begins trying out their cosmetic product. She seems to love it but questions why she was chosen to test it first. Lug replies that her husband's social momentum among the nobility makes her the ideal person to showcase the product. Many women admire her and follow her lead. Pleased by this, she confides that they had once been struggling nobles but have since risen to a life of luxury thanks to her husband's growing business. Moments later, Count Venka himself walks in, all smiles, and greets them enthusiastically. Lug, using the alias Illig, responds politely. Venka goes on about how supportive he is of his wife's passion for beauty products, even inviting them to a party he's hosting that evening. Lug and Moha thank him for the invite. But then Venka leans in and kisses his wife, Bridget, in front of them, something that clearly annoys Lug. That night, the event is buzzing with noble women, all eager to meet Lug. They ask to sample the new products and discuss purchasing options. Bridget soon enters the room with the cosmetics, and the women immediately crowd around her in excitement. Meanwhile, Venka walks up to Lug with a glass of wine, expressing how he enjoys anything that makes his wife happy. He jokes with Lug about not getting too close to Bridget, a comment Lug firmly shuts down. Trying to pivot the conversation, Lug brings up Venka's business, claiming he's heard it's thriving. But Venka tries to downplay it, saying it's a modest operation, not something a major trading company like Vela should worry about. This false modesty only fuels Lug's anger. After the celebration winds down and guests leave, Lug and Tart head to a cliffside vantage point overlooking the estate. Earlier, Bridget had mentioned that her husband has a nightly routine, sipping wine while stargazing from the balcony. With that in mind, Lug prepares his sniper rifle, lying in wait while Tart stands watch. Sure enough, Venka steps out onto the balcony as expected. Without a moment's hesitation, Lug lines up the shot and eliminates his target with a clean hit to the head. Lug holsters his weapon and tells Tart it's time to leave. But before they can go, he spots Bridget stepping onto the balcony, sobbing as she sees her husband's lifeless body. The deep love between them is clear, and for a moment, Lug is struck with a sense of sadness. He may be an assassin, but he's still human. Even so, he doesn't regret what he's done. He firmly believes the man deserved his fate. With that resolve, he walks away alongside Tart, silently accepting that from now on, he'll choose his own targets, free from orders, bound only by his will. Several months pass. Lug and Tart return from an isolated island, where they've been honing their magical abilities. As they arrive, Moha greets them warmly on the beach. Curious, Lug asks if anything has happened during their absence. On their carriage ride home, Moha reveals she has both good and bad news. Starting with the good, she shares that she discovered a powerful artifact. A divine treasure in the form of an indestructible magical spear. This spear belongs to someone named Satanta Magnus, a man of immense strength who may very well be the prophesied hero. Lug asks if Moha believes she can retrieve the weapon, and she confidently says yes. Moving to the bad news, Moha explains that a civil war has erupted in the nearby kingdom of Svogil. Dea's kingdom, Vikone, plans to support the royal forces, but there's a dangerous figure among the rebels, an elite warrior who's been causing serious disruptions. Worried, Lug decides to visit Dea. Slipping into her room through a window, he's met with joy from her. However, he immediately shifts the conversation to the growing war. Dea reassures him that the conflict is far from her borders and that they have skilled magic users to protect them. Still, Lug warns her about the powerful rebel soldier, possibly the hero himself, and emphasizes how difficult such a foe would be to stop. Dea listens, but when Lug suggests that she and her family flee before it's too late, she refuses. She can't abandon her people in such a crisis. Wanting to take her mind off the tension, Dea changes the subject, and despite his misgivings, Lug agrees to spend the day with her. Since her father and his advisors are away, the two head into town together. There, they play a game at a booth where Dea wins a teddy bear by hitting her mark in an archery challenge. Afterward, she mentions she's hungry, and Lug takes her to a special spot to eat. During their meal, she teases that she'd rather eat something he cooked. Lug, ever the clueless one, tells her he'll prepare something for her whenever she visits his home. Later, while walking back, they stumble upon a young boy crying alone in a quiet alley. Concerned, they find out he got separated from his mother. Naturally, they help reunite the pair. Touched by Lug's kindness, Dea decides to reward him in her own way, by taking him to a luxurious hot spring bathhouse in the city. Lug casually asks if the bath is separated by gender, but she replies that it isn't, meaning they'll both be sharing the same space. She then reveals she reserved the entire place just for the two of them. As she begins to take off her clothes, Lug follows suit, though his mind is racing with thoughts. When they enter the bathing area, both are struck by how spacious and beautiful the pool is. The mood is light-hearted as they splash around, but things take a turn when Dea accidentally slips into the deeper part of the pool. Fortunately, Lug is quick to act and saves her. While helping her stay afloat, they share a moment of connection, holding hands in the water. Dea begins to talk about how deeply she loves her kingdom and her desire to welcome her father back from war, as he always returns. Lug realizes that she doesn't want to abandon her people, and although it pains him, he accepts her choice and vows to support her. As night falls, they say their goodbyes. Lug tells her he'll visit again, but she lets him know she'll be busy and will contact him when the time is right. He respects her wishes and heads back home. Meanwhile, Dea receives a ceremonial agreement from men who appear to be citizens but are actually undercover soldiers, implying that she has committed to joining the war effort. Upon returning to Alvin, Lug discovers his parents tending to a gravely injured man. He demands to know what happened, and his father explains that an assassination mission has come up, one that Lug is expected to carry out. Shocked, Lug asks who the target is, only to hear a name that stuns him, Dea. His father gives him the option to refuse, but Lug questions whether interfering in another kingdom's war is morally right. His father agrees and notes that if word of the assassination spreads, it could lead to international tensions. He goes on to explain that the request isn't purely political, it's personal. The enemies had crushed the Vicone kingdom, which had previously supported Swoigil's royal faction during their civil war. Now, those enemies want Dea because of her extraordinary magical abilities. Vicone is renowned for magic and trade but lacks strong military defenses, making it vulnerable. To protect his daughter and avoid more bloodshed, Count Vicone chose a drastic solution, one Dea herself has accepted. The plan is to fake her death and smuggle her out of the kingdom, ensuring her safety. Now fully aware of the real goal, Lug accepts the mission to protect Dea, honoring his promise to always come when she needs him. As they discuss the mission further, Lug's father drops another surprise. Dea is actually his mother's niece, making them cousins. Their similar silver hair hints at their shared bloodline. Lug, however, doesn't dwell on the relation, his focus remains on rescuing the woman he loves. As he prepares to set off on his journey, Tart steps forward and expresses her desire to accompany him. He gently turns her down, explaining that the path ahead is long and he needs to maintain a fast pace. Yet, she insists, not to follow him the entire way, but to support him using her abilities. Moved by her determination, he agrees and asks how she plans to help. She explains that she intends to use the wind spell he once taught her, channeling it to propel him forward. Without hesitation, Tart casts the spell, forming a protective barrier around them as they set off at top speed, with Lug running close behind her. Tart's aid proves invaluable. Her spell shields them from the brunt of wind resistance and her mana fuels the movement, sparing Lug's energy. However, the effort weighs heavily on her. Despite the strain, she refuses to slow down, driven by a deep resolve to support him for as long as she can. As night falls and rain begins to pour, Tart keeps pushing herself past her limits. Lug sees her exhaustion, but she refuses to yield. By morning, the magical barrier she's been sustaining begins to falter, eventually cracking apart and sending her flying. Lug reacts quickly, catching her before she hits the ground. Tears stream down Tart's face as she apologizes for not being able to go further. But Lug thanks her sincerely, her help preserved his strength for the crucial part of his mission. With that, he resumes his journey alone. Later that night, Lug reaches the outskirts of the kingdom. He finds cover on a nearby hill and activates his assassin's sight to assess the battlefield. What he sees is troubling. The enemy forces number around 1,500, while Vicone's defenders are fewer than 200. The enemies also possess magic users, tipping the scales even further in their favor. Identifying their vulnerability, Lug sneaks closer and starts targeting the enemy spellcasters. But once they notice his position, they retaliate with a volley of arrows. To scatter them, Lug fires off mana-charged explosive arrows, disrupting their formation. In the chaos, Lug spots Dea through a window in the castle. At the same time, the Vicone soldiers recognize the enemy's confusion and launch a counterattack. Lug, determined to complete his mission, uses tracking magic to chart an invisible path to Dea. Along the way, he grabs the body of a fallen soldier, planning to use it as a decoy to fake her death. Soon, he infiltrates the room where Dea is held and finds her father there as well. Overjoyed, Dea rushes into Lug's arms. Her father, Count Vicone, introduces himself and playfully remarks that it seems his daughter is about to be taken in more ways than one, hinting at the bond forming between them. Lug shares his strategy with the others, revealing that they'll stage Dea's death. He tells her exactly what to say to her troops before setting the room ablaze, making it appear as though she perished in the fire. As the flames spread, Lug opens a window, signaling Dea to deliver her speech as planned. However, just as he begins to feel that something is off, a sudden sense of danger washes over him, and within moments, a powerful weapon charged with mana streaks toward their location. Reacting quickly, Lug pulls Dea out of harm's way as the projectile crashes into the area, triggering a massive blast that causes part of the room to cave in. Thankfully, no one is injured. When the smoke clears, they spot a heavily armored knight standing across the field, the one responsible for the attack. Enraged, Lug retaliates by summoning a bomb cannon and launching it at the knight. The resulting explosion is massive and fiery, yet to everyone's shock, the knight emerges from the blast relatively unscathed, with only a few scratches. Realizing something is off, Lug activates his assassin's vision and notices that the knight is growing stronger, both in body and magic, fueled by his rising anger. He then warns Dea and her father that conventional attacks won't work against this opponent. Understanding the situation, Dea's father urges them to retreat. Faking Dea's death is no longer possible with this knight present, especially since he's the one who brutally ended the civil war. The knight, standing firm, suddenly declares that whoever challenged him must now face him in a one-on-one fight. He's impressed by the attack and demands a duel, otherwise, he'll kill everyone present. He also promises that if he loses, he'll pull back all his forces and never threaten Vicone again. As the knight introduces himself as Setanta Magnus, Lug starts to suspect this might be the legendary warrior Mohar spoke of, particularly because of the magical spear he wields. Setanta warns Lug not to even consider fleeing, leaving him no option but to accept the challenge, despite knowing he likely can't win. Calmly, Lug fires a missile into the sky as he readies for the upcoming duel. Seeing his composed demeanor, Dea grows anxious and pleads with him not to throw his life away. Lug simply replies that he's not a soldier, he's an assassin, and what assassins do is eliminate threats. He and Dea's father then approach Setanta. Lug makes him swear to keep his word if he loses, and Setanta agrees, confident that victory is already his. Lug boldly declares he'll win, silently counting down the seconds until the missile returns, then urges Dea's father to leave and buy some time before impact. Lug keeps talking and chooses to flip a coin to signal when the fight should begin. As the coin hits the ground, Setanta stays focused on it, unaware that Lug had planned a diversion. The moment the coin lands, a missile Lug had previously launched into orbit makes its return, crashing down on Setanta's position and unleashing a devastating explosion resembling a nuclear blast. This weapon, a concept Lug remembered from his past life on Earth, was designed to wipe out entire regions, making it the perfect tool to eliminate a formidable warrior like Setanta. The resulting blast is so overwhelming that Dea and her father are forced to erect a magical barrier to shield themselves. Even Lug, despite his distance, is thrown by the shockwave and loses consciousness. Dea, unharmed, runs over in tears, pleading for him to wake up. Thankfully, Lug stirs and opens his eyes, leading to a tearful embrace as she expresses her fear of losing him. Lug returns to the Alvin kingdom alongside Dea. She's welcomed warmly by Tart and Lug's parents, and life resumes peacefully. A few months later, after Dea has settled in, Lug's father announces his decision to adopt her. Although she's 3 years older than Lug, he explains that her youthful appearance is due to her shared lineage with Lug's mother. She'll also take on a new surname, formalizing her place in the family. Lug, along with his mother and Tart, agrees to the arrangement. At that moment, his father shares unexpected news: the true hero has arrived in their kingdom. This shocks Lug, as he had believed Setanta was the hero. His father clarifies the misunderstanding and warns that the hero's arrival means the Demon Lord is not far behind. Lug nods in agreement, ready to handle what comes next. Soon after, a carriage arrives at the gates of Alvin's castle, and a composed young man steps out. He is introduced as Lord Epona, the real hero. Thanks for watching. If you like this anime recap, then please like, share and subscribe for the next part.